Why does nutrition matter for a runner?
What's been your experience with foods that you've added or eliminated impacting your runs? What to eat before a run?
Yeah. What do I eat and what should runners eat after a run? It seems to be a common thing with runners that they're always snacking. What are some signs of hunger that are not conventional? So we're on our way to Dexa Body. If you didn't know, Dexa Body is one of my sponsors. So I see a registered sports dietitian there every other week, and her name is Katie, and it's just been such a huge help to have someone who is just really, really good with nutrition help guide you. And yeah, we're also going to do a DEXA scan, so I'm excited to see if I've gained some muscle because I have been in my base phase. I've done a lot of strength training and I've just been progressing in the gym, so that's going to be cool. And then we're going to interview Katie and ask her some of the questions that I asked you guys on Instagram. So if you don't know me, I'm Caroline, and I used to sail competitively for 12 years before I signed up for my first marathon, the Bergen Marathon, and very unexpectedly won it running a 3:05. And then I hired a coach and I ran my second marathon, the Florence Marathon, and ran a 2:46. And I just jumped straight into marathon training. And after that, I suffered from 6 bone stress injuries, and I basically just made all the mistakes. And I really started this channel because I just want to share everything that I've learned about the sport with all of you guys. I'm also a marathon coach, so I'll leave my one-on-one coaching link below. And I also have 3 different marathon training plans depending on your level. So for my training plans, I'd say the biggest difference between other training plans that I've seen is that I have a very clear who is this for section. So you can just go onto the website and see how much running you're doing and therefore if the plan is right for you. Okay, so first question is, why does nutrition matter for a runner?
We treat nutrition, and I love to use the term fueling. So I like to think for running or really any sport, we need to fuel that event. And when our bodies are machines, the type of fuel that we put in does impact how that machine operates. So in the scheme of running, we want to treat nutrition like, what could I fuel with that will create the best machine's effort? So nutrition for a runner, we want to look at what fuel is going to be the most efficient. What can the body use most readily to make that run and effort smooth? The machine running at its best can definitely play a role from what they eat. It's the best way I like to think of it.
Yeah, I love that. I think for me, one of the things I've learned is to treat nutrition not something to work against, it's something to work for you.
Absolutely.
And that's like everything that I do in terms of training too. It's all being on my body's team and like really just like figuring out what is going to help it grow the most.
Yeah.
And in the same way, nutrition, like what to eat before a run so that I can perform, so that I can recover, so that I, just have the energy.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting, and you could probably speak to this a little bit, we all make decisions on what we're going to eat for a living. We have to eat to live.
Yeah.
And then we additionally have to eat for any activity that we do. And so I'm sure when you started sailing or even running, figuring out what your body was craving, what was going to help you feel better going into those efforts, or maybe what wasn't working well, what didn't make you feel good going into those efforts.
Yeah.
So some of it can be pretty intuitive.
Yeah.
But here at Dexa Body, I think what's interesting is how can we customize it? How can we go a little above and beyond to the things that you may not even feel impacting you and giving you the confidence that those foods are gonna fuel you?
Yeah.
What's been your experience with foods that you've added or eliminated impacting your runs lately?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing has been adding carbohydrates, and especially like before and after the runs. It's just, I can just tell that I'm not crashing as much. Like later in the day, I'm just feeling better. Yeah, so it's just been a very positive experience. And I thought I ate a lot of carbohydrates before because I knew how to balance the plate and I knew what was carbohydrates, and I would always include carbohydrates. But for me, I think the biggest thing is understanding the portion sizes that I need depending on how long my run has been or what other else activity, especially if I've had like double sessions with a lift later on. And then what I really like that we do is how we're changing my nutrition based on the training day. So there's a huge difference between like today where I had a zone 1 run 60 minutes and my Sunday where I'm running 25 kilometers and I'm burning like, at least 1,200 calories.
Yeah, absolutely. The fueling can look different. I think one of your questions was even what to eat before a run.
Yeah.
And that actually leads very nicely into the conversation topic being carbohydrates.
Yeah.
We probably think of carbohydrates in a lot of different categories. And I think before a run, as I mentioned, we want to fuel the body with what's most efficient. Carbohydrates for most of us are going to be that most efficient fuel source. And so before a run, you'd want to fuel with some simple carbohydrates. When we say simple, we want it to just be something that's quickly digesting. So our fruits and vegetables, they have carbohydrate, but they also have a lot of fiber that's going to slow down the digestion of that carbohydrate, and it's not going to be the most readily available for us to use in that run. So before a run, making sure we're fueling with something that's going to break down really easily. That's when we think of our breads and our pastas and our rices, some of our fruits that are more quicker digesting, have a little less fiber to them. Juices and milks and things that digest very quickly are going to be your best friend before a run, because that carbohydrate is going to be the best fuel going into that effort.
But is that more like right before, like an hour before, or is that, say so typically I'll have breakfast and I'll run maybe like 2 hours afterwards.
Yeah.
Should I then include, because very often if I only eat carbohydrates, I'll get hungry again.
Yeah.
So that's why
timing matters.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'd say we want to eat normally and balanced, meaning we want to include carbs and protein and fats and fibers and all the things we love to eat. When it comes to within 2 hours to that run, that's when we want to start to focus on what's going to be the most efficient.
Okay.
So we eat normally up until about that 2 hour window. If life is getting crazy and we needed to make it a 1 hour window, that's fine as well. But really within that hour before exercise, we want it to mainly just be that simple, quick digesting carbohydrate.
Yeah.
As little fiber as we can get in there, because we want to digest very quickly and not have you feeling bloated in that run. So it is all about timing within that hour to be simple carbohydrates that are going to get you fueled very quickly.
I have a question on this because I've heard this so many times, but very often in reality what happens to me is like I'll get a little hungry like right before I'm about to run, and I don't like running hungry. So first of all, I always eat breakfast before every single run. Like even if I don't wake up hungry, I'll have not like a big meal then, I'll listen to my body, but I'll have something because I really don't believe in training fasted, especially with the volume of training I'm doing. Yeah, so what very often happens is I'll get a little hungry right before I'll run. But I've noticed as long as I'm not in like too much what I think, like as long as I'm not too hungry, then I can eat a little meal like right before I'm about to run. Okay. So I guess that's where I feel like there is a lot of differences between people.
Sure.
And the way I've always thought of it is like listening to your body and what works for you. So if that works for me, then
absolutely. And I'll say this, the duration of our effort matters a lot too.
Yeah.
Because for you going into your daily training sessions, your body's very used to that effort, and it's only so long of an effort. So if we did take in, let's say, a meal that involved more than carbohydrate, protein and some fat, even though the body's going to focus on digesting that, it's going to continue to fuel your efforts and most likely not get in the way of digesting food and reducing the ability to run. And you're right, everyone's different. The amount of food you're able to handle before a run is different. The amount of the way your body digests, am I going to feel bloated? Everyone's experience is different. We just generally, we know to be true that is not different person to person, is we know that fat takes the longest to digest and we know that fiber takes the longest to digest. So those would be the two, if you're hungry and you're going to have that meal before the run, we'd want to limit those two the most. If carbohydrates and protein are the main players, absolutely.
So basically what that looks like is broccoli is a very healthy food, but not the one you want to go for right before your workout.
Correct. It wouldn't be ideal. It would take the body a while to digest that and get the carbohydrate from that broccoli into your body to use as fuel. So what I'll do sometimes, especially if I have a longer or harder run, I'll have a gel. Because it's just straight energy. The energy chews, the gels, the waffles, Stinger waffles or sports drinks, they're very helpful. But if you're wanting something to chew on, gels, energy chews, Stinger waffles, even protein bars, they're going to have primarily protein and carb to work with.
And that's also why we've created Satisfied muffins, is because they are low in fat and higher in carbs and protein. And I find that they do digest really well, because that is the one thing I realized that I was doing before that really didn't work, and it was because I didn't know. I would have a lot of peanut butter, like I would just spoon, I love peanut butter, so I would just like spoon peanut butter right before my sessions. And I had this feeling like it was just like sitting at the top of my chest. And I was like, what is going on? But that is because it's
more dense food. It's got everything. It's got carbs and protein and fat, and we love it, right? It's so nice to spoon. You really don't need to add anything with it because it's got all the flavor you would want. But with that added fat, potentially, just sitting in the system a little longer than desired. May not be the most desirable before a run in a high amounts. But if you were going to spread a little bit on some toast and see how that sits, things like that may do better. But I think, you're probably experienced. The spoonfuls of it were not your best friend
So I think, because I do see a lot of runners have a lot of peanut butter on bread with some honey, some banana, and I think that as long as exactly what you said, that it's in smaller amounts, like that's totally fine. But I think for me, as someone who like loves peanut butter, I will very often want to have it in larger amounts, and that makes it not ideal right before a run.
Absolutely. You figured it out.
Another question I get asked all the time is, what do I eat and what should runners eat after a run?
Okay, so good question. It is similar to what we would want to keep to before a run, very similar after. When we finish an effort, right, one of the first things to take in, and this may not even come in a quote unquote eat standpoint, but electrolytes. We want to replenish what we used. And so it's important to rehydrate, and that is not even the scheme of eating, but making sure we're getting not only fluid, but electrolytes within that. Our sodium, our potassium, things that our muscle tissue can actually use at the next exchange to recover with. And then along the lines of recovery, we want to replenish with what we used. And what our body used in that run was a lot of our glycogen stores. And that's an area in our muscle where sugar is actually stored to then be used for energy. And so we want to refill those storages in our muscle, and that's going to come from, again, sugar at its basic core being put back into the body in the form of carbohydrate. So one of the best things we can do after a run or after an effort is take in carbohydrate. Simple digesting once again, because we want it to quickly get into the bloodstream, and what our muscle cells are going to do is they're going to open up and let that carbohydrate in. They're going to bring that sugar in. It's going to restock what it lost. Along with that, while those channels are open, taking in that carbohydrate, well, one of the best things we can also pair with that carbohydrate is going to be protein, because muscle cells already open and accepting all that carbohydrate back in to replenish. Protein is also going to be let in. So we want to take in, primarily after a run, a combination of both carbohydrates and protein to recover from that effort.
Awesome. So the way we've been doing that now for my diet is by either having like a post-run recovery shake, where I'll typically have like banana, frozen banana, and then whey protein. Just super simple. And then for flavoring, I'll do like an espresso shot and cocoa.
I love it.
To get like a mocha. I love chocolate, as probably everyone knows. So I'll either have that, or I'll have one of Satisfied's protein muffins, because again, it's just like the oats and the bananas, and there is a little bit of carrot, but it's not like too high in fiber. But so you have those whole food carbs, very easy digestible with the whey protein. And then very minimal fat.
Perfect.
So but how many grams of protein and carbs really should you aim for? And does this change depending on how long you've been running?
Good question. And the answer is there's actually a good range. Our body can only utilize a certain amount of things at a time. And so really there's an upper end where past that point, is our body really going to be able to utilize this right now? Likely no. And so that good range of protein after an effort is going to be 20 to 30 grams. We're getting that in. Our body can utilize
regardless of size. So like someone like me and like Oscar,
Yeah.
we should both aim for 20 to 30 grams.
Focus on that allotment, yeah.
Okay.
Body's going to know how to utilize that protein pretty efficiently, and then we want to double the amount of carbs. So if I'm having 20 to 30 grams of protein, I'm thinking about 40 to 60 grams of carb paired with that.
Okay.
That's a good rule of thumb. Now, the best way to intake that is going to be within 30 to 45 minutes after that effort. That's the time when our body's
So that window is true.
Absolutely, yeah. It doesn't cease. It doesn't mean your body's not going to recover if you miss that window.
Yeah.
But our protein synthesis, our recovery period, definitely has some advantage to being timed. Absolutely.
Yeah. Perfect. For me, I will prep my smoothie or like have the muffin ready, so it's like it's very quick right afterwards.
Yeah.
And then I'll go shower, I'll like do some stretching, I'll do some emails. Like honestly, typically I have like a meeting, so I'm like boom in the meeting.
Yeah, on to the next.
Exactly, so it's really good. I feel like especially because I do have all those to-dos right after my run, since my run is in the morning, to have that fuel.
Yeah.
And what, from my experience, I have seen a huge difference after I started front loading more of my calories.
Good.
And a big part about this for me was this, back to what we talked about with hunger.
Yeah.
It's like this whole, we know we live in a society where we're overeating and that we, in a sense, need to be careful with food, but then what can happen for someone who is really active is that you think that, oh, but I'm not hungry, so I shouldn't be eating. But you definitely do need a lot of food.
Absolutely.
And especially around the workout.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I know for you, and I think a lot of my athletes, the idea of when I'm full, I don't want to eat.
Yeah.
And that's why the shakes can be very advantageous.
Yeah.
It's a little bit easier to consume, especially after an effort. I think that's why it's become so popular.
Yeah.
Luckily for you and a lot of my athletes, whey protein is easy digested.
Yeah.
But just for individuals who may not digest whey well or don't know where to start with the protein powder, there are options. If you don't digest whey well and you need to opt for one that's plant-based, it can be the easiest way to get that fueling in after a run.
Yeah.
But for those who think it needs to be a shake, I'd also offer the other side. If someone wanted to fuel afterwards with lean proteins and quick digesting carbs that they're going to ingest and eat, that's totally fine as well. I just find you're right. When we feel full and we don't think we need that fuel, well, I'm still going to get it in. The shakes and the liquid forms tend to be easier to take in. Yeah,
and also one of the things I love about a shake is then I'll add my creatine, and I also take L-glutamine, which reduces muscle soreness.
Absolutely.
And I don't take like a lot of supplements. I am going to do a full video on supplements with Katie, so stay tuned for that video. But yeah, it's just a great way to add those things without really tasting it.
Exactly.
How can people get in touch with you and Dexa Body?
Yes, so wonderful. So the best way to get in touch with us is going to be through our website. That's where at dexabody.com you can explore the different types of nutrition packages we offer. Some are custom to sport and athletes. Some are going to be very wellness geared for people who want to use nutrition in other areas besides training for sport. So you can find a whole section about nutrition, who our dietitians are, what their backgrounds are, and what they specialize in. So you can find my schedule there. You'd want to go to dexabody.com, click on nutrition services, and there will be a panel for you to schedule a discovery session with me there.
So you can have Katie, my registered sports dietitian, as your dietitian. But also I get my Dexa Body scan through Dexa Body. I also do VO2 max testing, which helps me calculate my heart rate zones. And if you don't know, I train on heart rate, so this is extremely valuable for me to make sure that I'm training in those correct zones. And then I've also gotten my RMR test to help calculate my baseline of how much food I need. So definitely check them out because they have been a huge help to me. Thank you so much for watching. Please like this video to help me out as a new YouTuber, and subscribe if you want to follow my journey as I'm working towards the 2028 Olympics. And also let me know if you have any questions and what you want to see me make more videos of.